And we're live. Welcome back to the Social Kick Podcast. I'm Brian Lundquist, joined by a big crew today, Luke Paddington, Dr. John Mullen, Duncan Kroll, Justin Wynn, and a special guest joining us via a computer screen, Mr. Nathan Adrian. What's up, Nathan?
Hey, how we doing, guys?
Good, man.
Good, man, how are you?
Drinking in
Haha, it looks good up there.
Brian, where are you? What are you doing?
So, I'm posted up outside Donner Lake. I don't know if it's worth moving the camera for it, but
Where's Donner Lake?
Good spot lakeside.
Yeah,
it's not too bad. I got a nice setup here, right on one of the public piers, drawing power off my camper van. Gonna have a nice little weekend in Tahoe. It's gonna be good stuff. Luke, you should have come.
I know.
John's coming.
Well, you know why you're there, right? Isn't tomorrow or this Saturday was meant to be the Trans Tahoe swim?
That's right.
Which, you know,
yeah. So we have a group that does the Trans Tahoe Relay Swim every year. For people that aren't living in California or don't know about it, it's awesome swim across Lake Tahoe. You start from the Nevada side. I think it's 13 miles or so across.
Yeah, something like that.
Kind of the thinnest point from Sand Harbor to Dollar Point. And you actually see it's kind of a who's who of the swimming community in California and around. There's always teams from Cal, from Stanford, and then a bunch of people that just ended up in California or around that show up there. And it's kind of a big party, but it's also fun to go hard. We go hard usually, but
we go hard.
Anyway, it got canceled this year, and our friend group still had our Airbnb and just decided to make a fun trip of it. And that's really what it's all about. So
Nathan, would you consider doing that?
One day? I hold the record at Cal for open water swimming in that I did the Tiburon Mile, but I was the only person to get out because I had like a little anxiety attack. So no.
Dewey said he got out as well. Dewey said that he went on the boat. He's like, no, I'm not getting in the water. And he turned around. So maybe
he's smart. He's used to nice weather and like literally. I mean, when we lived in the Keys, like a bad day of visibility was 30 plus feet. Right. Now we're talking
must be nice.
The Tiburon Mile, which means shark in Spanish, and I'm just terrified. So you can't see your hand below you.
Oh, geez.
Well, hey, speaking of open water in the Bay, another Cal alum on Monday just set the women's record for a lap from, I think it was from Tiburon, around Angel Island.
So
where's it from?
From Aquatic Park. Go ahead.
Park.
So not only that, but she actually, I'm not positive, you're going to have to fact check me, but she has the record for single crossing of Tahoe.
Yes, she does.
Yes, she does. Yes.
Yeah, 21 miles in 12 hours.
Yeah, she's legit, man. And then I think she did the English Channel, just like flew over there and then just like went straight to water.
Yeah. I've swam with Kat a couple times recently, and one with a minor shark encounter in Santa Cruz. And I'm trying to get harder by learning to swim in cold water without a wetsuit, but I don't know. The sprinter in me is just not really having it.
Come on, hold true, Brian. Hold true.
Yeah. I don't know. Anyway, John, what are you drinking tonight?
I'm still at the office, so just some water here. I almost grabbed a coffee, but I'm just drinking water tonight, guys.
Cheers to that. Luke, what are you drinking?
The same drink I had last week of the Bayesian coach, Leah. So my rum with some lime juice, nutmeg, and bitters, making my rum punch. So the same thing as last week. Remember the catastrophe I had of Leah when I messed up where this rum is from? Yeah, we remember well.
Yep.
So
you got something.
Not the area code. Not the area code.
Nope.
Rum punch every meal.
Duncan, what are you drinking tonight?
I'm not drinking anything. Underage.
Well, goodbye, Duncan. He had his moment. He's gone.
Underage and undersupported in technology.
Yep. We gave him a shot. Couldn't hang.
Justin, what do you got?
I think I'm joining you, Brian. Another Health Aid kombucha, watermelon flavor, my favorite.
Oh, they redid the
sponsor me, please.
That's a good one. And Nathan, you're staying hydrated too.
Staying hydrated. I got my coconut water.
Nice.
Coconut water's on point. All right, so tonight, well, I'm starting with the kombucha, the Brew Doctor Ginger Turmeric. You can't always find all these flavors, but anyway, I'll probably grab a beer after this. So Nathan, what's been going on? I hear you're into business ventures these days.
Yeah, a little bit. We Will Copeland and I name a lot of swimmers will recognize. Training buddy at Cal. He actually got 7th in 2016, 100 freestyle. We purchased an old swim school up in San Rafael. So especially during the lockdown time, was spending a lot of time getting that ready to go, figuring out what we could possibly do, how we could open, what restrictions needed to be made. Given that opening, all that fun stuff. I've said a couple times, I've spent way more hours watching county supervisor meetings than I ever care to admit. But you need to do that sort of thing to try to figure out basically who's making the decisions and what those decisions are. And, we're actually very, 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 very safe. We're not pushing any boundaries at all. I mean, there's no ifs, ands, or buts. You got to wear a mask anytime you're not in the pool. But you got to understand what those restrictions are.
Hey Nathan, we talked recently, just last weekend, about the inequality in swimming, the lack of the Black community who swim in America, and one of the things that we're talking about is the access to pools, and especially in communities. I have a colleague who lives on San Rafael, and he says, "Look, I know you swim. I take my son to this swim school, and when I walk in, there's a big picture of these 2 swimmers from Cal. Do you know them?" I'm like, maybe. And then it's you. And he's so grateful for a place to take his kid to go and train and swim, and for the community to have this pool that, Ann Curtis started. Why did you and Will decide to do this?
Yeah, I mean, it's always been something that's been on my radar. And to be totally honest, it was planned on being a little bit more organic. Maybe something where you rent a hotel pool, you start giving lessons. Then once you're full, you hire an instructor, and then you start giving more lessons. Then you hire another instructor. But then this opportunity came up, and it was actually, in the middle of my issue with testicular cancer, and it proved to be just a spectacular thing to have to work towards, because I couldn't work towards swimming at the time.
Yeah.
And that's really tough. I think a lot of people probably understand that now with COVID more than ever, is that you kind of spin a little bit when you don't have something to progress towards. And what actually had happened was that Will was looking for a commercial property to rent or buy or do something where he could build a pool, do this, that. And for whatever reasons, this property went for sale and missed his filters, and it was in contract with a developer. So that developer submitted plans to build like a 17 or 18 unit condo building. And fortunately for us, the neighbors didn't love that. So they raised a big fuss at, again, the county supervisors meetings and San Rafael housing district, all that good stuff for us, of course. So then it went back on the market, and that was literally, I think it was in between my surgeries, or maybe shortly after the second one. I can't remember, to be totally honest. And then it just all happened really quick. We basically thought, and we were like, oh, dude, we got
to step in.
Banker, we got to secure a loan. We got to get every document possible. I mean, it's a crazy process, a lot like buying a house. But the Cuneos, Ann Curtis married Gordon Cuneo.
Right.
Gordon Cuneo was actually a basketball player at Cal. Ann Curtis was obviously a swimmer. There was not women swimming at Cal at the time. And they moved up to San Rafael, started the swim school. I'm pretty sure Gordon built the pump room and the office with his bare hands on the weekends.
Oh, wow.
And then, the rest is history. So we're just very fortunate that it's sort of the pieces kind of came into place just at the right time.
Cal has a history of some of your alum who build pools. I mean, I know all sponsors some of the building of the pools. Like in the Speaker Center, sponsored by Bob Speaker, who has the construction community in Atherton or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. And also, I mean, we're very fortunate that we have wonderful alumni who support our program. Just as another example, like that Legends Aquatic Center, it was the general manager who oversaw all the construction was from the Schnug family.
That's right.
If you are part of the water polo community at all in the East Bay, you understand who they are. I think at one time they had something like 13 or 14 cousins that all went to Cal at the same time. It was crazy. You couldn't go to a party or go to a bar without seeing a schnug at the time. So he helped build the pool, which obviously saved a ton on costs and made sure that it was exactly what we needed to train, right? Because they get it. It's not just like, oh, this is a pool company and they know how to build a pool. It's like, this is a guy who played water polo at Cal, whose daughter was like a national team level water polo player and understands, what makes a good training facility. And that's what it is down there at Legends, is a training facility.
So what are you and Will going to do with your pool? Are you going to renovate it? You walk in there and you're like, oh, I wish we could do this or that. What's your plans? What's your dreams?
Yeah, Brian can come do some renovations for you if needed. Right,
well, if we had unlimited money, of course we would do all sorts of stuff. I think first things first, we would like to enclose the teaching pool when the time comes. We're looking at maybe getting one of those inflatable bubbles that goes over sports fields. I think it's really just genuinely too nice of a place in the summer when the weather is nice to enclose it permanently. I mean, it would just be a total shame. Obviously, that's not going to happen now. I mean, we are blessed that we're outside because we have fresh air, we have UV light, and we can actually, run some socially distanced private lessons right now because of that. It's the thing is that it is a 60-year-old pool, but it's built well, and I don't want to change too much about it because there's something about that where there's like families that like their third generation is learning how to swim at this pool. And it's just like something really cool about that in the community. Yeah. That being said, I mean, again, if I had unlimited money, I would go, get some land and build a 50-meter pool and build an awesome training facility and run something out of that too. But, that is, gosh, I don't even know how much that is down the road, $25 million or so.
But you don't actually have to build something that costs. You can build something that's a culture. And you can build that community and continue what they have and bring what you all love of the sport to the community, yeah?
That's actually, thank you for pointing that out. I think I was thinking about the literal physical building. I love that aspect of it.
Yeah.
Like when we get those emails talking about, hey, yeah, we've been members for 25 years. I'm like, man, this is something special. We can't change that.
Yeah.
And then, right now because of the pool situation up in Marin County, a lot of the high school pools are closed. So we're actually running some of the local swim teams out of our pool, and it's been really fun. I mean, it's been an opportunity for me to put my coaching hat on for a little bit. I've since taken it off, passed it on. It's just too much time in the sun for me while I was trying to do my own training. But I mean, it's been really cool, and working with those athletes and kind of knowing what they're going through. A lot of these athletes, I mean, they're sophomores, juniors, seniors, going into their sophomore, junior, or senior year in high school, and they're freaking out a little bit, to be honest. I mean, like, they're seeing other people in their full training groups on Instagram, and here we are still, like, basically shelter in place. So, like, it felt really good to be able to get some swimmers back in the water. Oh, not only that, but they were literally swimming in the bay at 5 a.m. like every morning, like with or without a wetsuit, and that's like pretty legit. So we kind of inherited the best of the best in terms of like a dedicated and motivated group to work with.
Do people know who you are? Because sometimes you're like, that he looks familiar, but no. Any funny stories?
I think.
What did you know about swimming? Get off the deck.
Some of maybe, I don't know if all of them did. I think most of them might have though.
Well, so what I've been wondering about is there's a bunch of pools, including the one that I would swim in the South Bay, that charges just a crazy amount of money to come in, and it's mostly like for open swim, and it's mostly closed throughout the rest of the year except for the summer. I'm just wondering if so you have Christy Young from Michigan who started his swim school, and that's been going for a while. I wonder if there's an opportunity through this to, almost sell a package for other, municipalities or so forth, where they're basically just funding the pools at a loss. I mean, some pools are to the max, especially right now, but there's a lot of pools that I've been around that just seem like they don't really know how to operate it. And, it sounds like what you guys are building is the way to get the most out of a pool, engage the community. I don't know. Have you thought about that?
I do all the time. And honestly, I think the real people you should be talking to right now are whoever owns Nitro, whoever owns Swim Atlanta, Some of the bigger clubs in like Tennessee. I mean, honestly, like look at when we were growing up. I mean, California swimming was like, yeah, whoa, like those guys are good. They like you see someone with a Terrapin swim cap or whatever, Nova, Mission Viejo. You're like, man, that's legit. And I'm not trying to take away from any of that or anything that they've done, but I think since then, I think some other places and programs have maybe surpassed that. And by kind of emulating what they're doing and trying to put our own spin on it and our own flavor, we can try to bring. I mean, the numbers are there. There are enough athletes in the Bay Area that we should be churning out national record holders like every year. It's crazy. You look at the summer league programs. You just gotta reduce some of that attrition. Get them to a place in a group. And I truly believe that coaching is incredibly important, no doubt. But I believe even with mediocre coaching, if you have the right group that is motivated, that wants to work hard, where the coach has to force them to stop racing in practice, that's when you're going to see some really incredible results.
Agreed.
What about your own swimming? What's going on? How's training going?
We're swimming, man. We're swimming. We're not swimming as much as we normally do, but my old man body is appreciating it a lot. We are out in Walnut Creek right now, just because the way the counties are working right now, they're open. Alameda's not. And we needed some places to swim. So we were up at my pool for a little bit, but it's 4 lanes and it doesn't have gutters. Also 3.5 feet on the ends, and you're flipping into the skimmers or into the return lines. It's just like,
listen, you're just too huge for that. You just can't be doing it.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying. So we got. We're at a big deep 25-yard pool, which is great, very conducive for training and what we need right now.
Yeah, I was talking to Tom Shields, and he says you guys are still looking for pools. I mean, he's going to speak to Dave about a pool that I swam at recently, which was a beautiful long course pool of tons of empty lanes. They're out there, but it's just rare and at strange times, right?
Yeah, it's funny. It's all about kind of figuring out where they are and who's in charge of them.
Yeah. Do you have you guys talked about a schedule where you're assuming that there's not going to be any meets, so you kind of just look at some checkpoints throughout the next year? Obviously, when trials are, when the Olympics are, but is there any interim planning, or are you basically just approaching your daily training program with the expectation that, okay, a year from now I need to peak?
Dave already has a plan, man.
I know that.
Dave probably had a plan from about 4 or 5 days before the IOC actually announced that we were postponing the games. He always does, and that's why I'm always just comfortable with just following his plan, because I know it's well thought out. That being said, he hadn't planned on having any racing opportunities till at least like September, maybe October, but I'm definitely itching to race. I brought up trying to throw out a little challenge relay. I don't really want to swim a 200-yard race, so I was like, "Hey Dave, who do you think would win? This group in a 4x150, or the other group that's training at the other pool?" Trying to get his his wheels turning so we could just compete. I mean, that's like, and to his credit, I mean, we are. So now that we have 11 lanes, like we are able to actually step up, compete. I'm watching across the pool, those distance guys, they're cranking, they're getting moving. So it's really nice.
How much of a role does altitude training play on your typical lead ups? Are you going to Colorado much? Is that kind of on the fence maybe this year? Well, obviously we don't know.
Yeah. So Colorado's it's another logistic nightmare, to be totally honest. I mean, you have to go up there, you have to self-quarantine, and I don't remember the protocols, to be completely honest, but they're specific, they're developed, and they're pretty stringent. So I mean, you're going up there and then you have to spend 6 days out of the water, out of the weight room. Is it worth it? I don't know. So I live in Oakland. I have a wife, a dog, a cat. I'm not gonna, it would be worth it if I was going up there for 3 months or something, but that's just not in the cards for me these days.
Is that
Nathan,
something you're typically doing though in your lead up that you're
Oh yeah,
looking
no.
maybe I won't be
We,
able to?
Yeah, my wife probably cringed in the other room when you said Colorado Springs. I think we usually go about 3 times from December to trials, usually, and it's 2 weeks or maybe just a little bit more than that. There's the winter one, then there's the one that we go while Dave is at NC's, and then there's another one that usually happens in like June or maybe a little bit before June.
Nathan, I was going to say that you mentioned that a lot of the kids that you've been coaching, the high schoolers, they're seeing their friends on social media getting water and training and they're a little bit not freaking out, but they're concerned. How about you, dude? I mean, you're seeing not just other places in the States, but other countries getting the water. I mean, Hungary was in the water super early and,
Right.
and if I believe is Energy Standard gathering next week to start doing their training and stuff. So
Looking like it. Yeah.
so how do you feel about that? How do you feel about, like other countries and your peers are, what's your philosophy on that? What can you do, right?
Great question. Honestly, I am so excited to see the results of what happens this year. I mean, I have there's a small part of me in the back of my head that says, man, I think sprinters in the U.S. could absolutely go off this year just because we're done overtraining. Like, like people are a little bit, I mean, obviously you need a little access to the weight room here or there, but I just think that overtraining is just so much a part of our culture, and you kind of throw a lot of mud at the wall, see what sticks, and then the best come out. And I think that there's a lot of athletes that get a little bit overlooked because of that fact, and maybe they're going to find their sweet spot, and it's going to be beautiful to watch.
Yeah, it's really going to be interesting trials and all the upcoming meets, and like you're saying, Nathan, I'm excited to see kind of what happens and see if people, obviously there's been different transitions in training philosophy, and it's had to be transitioned a lot more. If more and more go towards race pace training and what type of results that might have.
I mean, that's spot on, right? We're looking at us. How many hours a week are we at? 6. So we have 12 hours of water time a week. I mean, that's not enough to crank out a 80K plus week. Not that we were ever anyway. So I have seen definitely a transition. Don't get me wrong by any means. Like, we are still as tired as we normally are. It's just kind of a different approach to training.
What did you get to work on and improve in these last 3 months? Every crisis is opportunity, right? What is like, I really got to focus on healing, stronger technique, visual rest. What was the best thing that happened?
So, I mean, part of it was working at the swim school. I think I'm just like a lot more comfortable now. Like, what's going to happen after swimming? I'm like, well, I actually really enjoyed that. So I'm going to try to build that up, like you had mentioned. And then on top of that, we did spend some time, and it was pretty specific. I mean, there was one, I think about 5-week cycle where we were working on some underwaters. I don't know if Tom went into this with you guys. And then there was another 5-week cycle where a lot of the other guys were working on pace work while I was working on, strength and power. So I was doing 3, 5, and 7 strokes out the wall with a chute while we were doing like short interval into.
You put your time in doing that, Nathan. You had your time. Okay.
The focus, the mental capacity.
You just brought it back. You're like,
yeah,
jumping, crying.
And then I kind of saw. So basically, when Bay Area went shelter in place, I knew this was probably going to happen a lot longer than most of us wanted. So I actually went online, ordered some weights for myself. So I have a little setup in the garage, and just working on just some boring old, the 3 main lifts that all swimmers are doing. But going back to the basics, I purposefully didn't get any more than 300 pounds, so I wouldn't be tempted to try to fire off some 1-rep maxes or anything. Honestly, I think for the first 3 weeks, I didn't put on more than 155 onto the bar. And I think that actually really helped groove some neural paths in making sure that I am lifting with the right muscles. Although I will say that I think I recently blew that. I'm definitely compensating. My left shoulder is all messed up right now, but that'll come back with some rest and some self-treatment.
So you're telling us that you can 1-rep max at least 300?
Not. You know what? I actually have a very I don't know what it is. Actually, maybe Dr. John can go into more specifics about why I'm so much better at dumbbell bench press than I am barbell. So that's one of the reasons why I don't have dumbbells. So I have been doing a lot of barbells. And I know that for me, I'm one of those guys who likes to, I like to flare out my elbows a bunch. Caused me a huge issue. I had to get a Mumford procedure on my right shoulder, which basically means that I had arthritic bones and they were rubbing on each other, and then it just kept getting worse and worse and worse until we finally had to clean it up. And that is something that I want to prevent. I don't ever want to do that again. So I definitely spent a lot of time working on that technique.
Well, first of all, I figure the big three, you mean bicep curl, calf raises, and I don't know, what do we need now? We're talking about having ear strength with our N95s, right? So we have some different resistance there.
Yeah.
But yeah, probably better with the dumbbells. A lot of swimmers are, just so you can change that elbow position. With the fixed bar out here, it's harder to stabilize the shoulder blades. And I'm sure you have mobile shoulders. That's probably one reason why you're such a good swimmer. So that's why a lot of swimmers have troubles with it, and a lot of them hurt themselves on barbell bench.
Yep, absolutely.
When I met you, Nathan, I was like, you told me that you had just done dumbbell press. You had like 120 on each arm dumbbells. And I remember I was sitting down next to you at dinner, and I looked across at you. I was like, what? Like, how's that possible? Are you stronger? That was 8 years ago. Have you got yourself stronger? 8 years ago, that's 2012. You were a 40. That was 2012 Olympics. So yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. It depends. If you really let me work on like strength, oh yeah, absolutely. I could get there. But if you were gonna say, hey, here's some 120s and here's a couple of hundreds to warm up with, it's not just like that simple, right? You gotta give me a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks to really get those patterns down.
Let's go back, Nathan, because a lot of people know you for your strength, and you're strong. You're a strong swimmer. You're very good at grabbing the water and holding on to that. But you put money in the bank. When you were a kid, you did that time. It was Justin, you're telling me about a set, July 4th set of 4,200s you do? I mean, you put your time in the water, didn't you? And you don't lose that.
Oh man, there are so many of them. Honestly, to get Jesse Stipek on here, there's a lot of sets like that.
Right.
3 1000s to send, and we did several rounds of it. It was just like crazy. Yeah, I did. Right. And it was, it was grueling, no doubt. I appreciate it, certainly. I think actually doing that, there's kind of two ways that your mind can go when you do that, right? And one is like, oh my God, this is the worst thing ever, and I'm gonna sing my favorite song, and each of my strokes are gonna correspond to the beat. And then the other one is like, wow, how can I make this not so terrible in terms of being so exhausted? I'm gonna work on my technique. And I actually am really grateful that I sort of just gravitated towards working on my technique. I mean, I had a great 2-beat kick because that's kind of all that I could like sustain. I don't know why. There's just no way I could have held a 6-beat kick for doing some of those sets. So I got a really good grasp on how to connect, that catch to that same side kick, and it was very like kind of, I guess it was just like natural for a while. And then when I got to Mike Bottom, and that was my freshman year at Cal, and he had this very specific theory about kicks and when they should come in the strokes, whether it should be hip driven, whether it should be shoulder driven, and how those kicks slot in. And I was like, boom, light bulb. That is amazing. That is what I like have been feeling, but I didn't understand how to kind of talk about it or see it on video myself. And that freshman year, that's basically the foundation for a lot of my stroke.
So your quote is quoted as Nathan came in as a scrawny kid on the Cal team, and he wasn't, frankly, as very good. We had great swimmers on the team at that point, and we wanted to know who this scrawny kid was in. But then we saw something in him. Yeah. So I want to let people know Nathan was not always the big, strong guy we know. He was a scrawny kid, and I know pictures of that. What was that like coming in 2007 to that Cal team? And of Mike and Mike's legacy of what he did there, and his vibe and his relationship to you.
Yeah, so it was great. I mean, why? So, giving you a little more history, we were talking earlier a little bit about driving my sister down to Arizona State University back in the day. My brother actually went to University of Washington.
Yep.
So I actually was going to Belmont to watch Pac-10s. And I remember my sister and I went to the Safeway and we bought like a 12-pack of ice cream sandwiches. I'm pretty sure we ate the entire thing before we even got back to and honestly, back then, I mean, I was watching like Eric Vent and I was watching Dewey, and I think you know what, Kavik. I don't know if Kavik was there yet, but I remember because Pac-10s were at Federal Way, and Tacoma Swim Club was timing for them, and I timed in a lane for Simon Burnett, and that was the year that he went the 1:31.2. But I don't know,
Out of nowhere.
swim historians. You know that Arizona traditionally back then swam terrible at Pac-10s. It was like the most unbelievable experience. They would like perfectly move into that taper blues and then just blow it out of the water at NCAAs. It was really cool to watch just because there's a lot of different ways to approach swimming, of course. And then I actually timed for Kavik, and I was like totally blown away. As a high school senior, being really excited, or maybe as a high school junior. I don't remember what year it was. That this is like that's where I want to go. Like that's the place. So I mean, coming in, it's, Mike had an amazing way with sprinters. He was kind of the new school guy back then. There's like the new school now, of course, but he was new school, and that was what I was about. Like, we had put in the work, right? Like, we back in the day, it was like, all right, in high school, you don't lift weights, you don't do really any dry land, and you just crank out yards. And then when you get to college, you're going to lift weights, you're going to put on a bunch of muscle, and then you can actually start working on sprint stuff. So that's what we did, and I bought into it. I loved it. I loved actually sprinting. I loved swimming with a 6-beat kick, and like having to like engage my abs through the entire stroke as we were swimming. So, I mean, my relationship with Mike was great. He was and is and will continue to be a great coach. And I mean, a lot of that is because of his relationship with his swimmers.
Yesterday we were just talking with Milo about some of the days down in Isla Mirada, and honestly, you really spanned an era there with handing the torch over from Gary to you, and then carrying it now, and you might say handing it off to Caleb. But I mean, talk about formative years. Like, what was the decision like to have the courage to say, I'm bought into what Mike's teachings are, I'm going to go with him, and I'm going to take a year off, I'm going to go be around these guys? Like, what was that experience in the lead up to 2008 like?
That was awesome. I mean, I wouldn't trade that time for anything. I was an 18-year-old kid making the decision, and quite frankly, it was sort of it was a no-lose situation for me because I had the Olympic waiver. If I didn't have the Olympic waiver, man, my parents, there's no way they would have let me do that. They would have been like, no, you are going to school, and that is final. But because we had a piece of paper saying, hey, your NCAA eligibility, your scholarship is preserved. What an amazing opportunity. I was actually still young. I was young for my grade at the time. I had skipped kindergarten. So I was one of those kids. Freshman year, I had to fax like medical paperwork home so my parents could sign it, and they had to fax it back. How annoying is that?
What's a fax?
Yeah. So that's and being there with that crew and training for the Olympics, like, a lot of people would give a lot for that, and I'm very grateful that Mike and the Halls were willing to present me with that opportunity. Working with some of the greatest coaches, and then being around some of the greatest athletes. And I absolutely still to this day take a lot from what I learned from Milo. Sorry, I can't get that right in my head. And Gary and Dewey. I mean, they just like the way they trained, the way George trained then, and then the way George progressed and learned from that experience as he moved on to training for 2012. I just like love seeing those perspectives, and like with my entire career, I am like, hey, is that something that maybe I could do? Is that something that I think I could work into what I'm doing? Give it a try. If it doesn't work, toss it out the window, and if it does work, then we try. We take it internal, and then we try to build on it.
It seems as though Mike.
Sorry, do you feel like the learnings? I mean, Milo was saying how much there was to soak up, maybe not even just on the pool deck, but also, at lunch, at dinner, hanging out with all these guys. And I mean, we were just talking to Duya about his philosophy of, being a lighter guy, being all about technique and connection and kind of, swimming on top of the water and, yeah, allegedly scrawny Nathan Adrian. I don't remember you that way at all. So like you're always such a powerful guy and really strong. And I'm just wondering about like the meld of all of the ideas, but then also you guys having the maturity and sort of, the wherewithal to say, I hear you. That's an idea. I might try it, but maybe it doesn't fit for me.
Yeah, no, I mean that's a spot on, and it was so cool for me to experience all of the different, like I can't call it cultures, but the product of those cultures. I mean, I would have never lived with a guy from Trinidad. I would have never known what that was all about. I would have never known that he had 70-foot anacondas like floating. And he would see them on his boat and stuff. Like his stories are absolutely amazing. He's a total jungle man. I love it. And then Dewey and Kavik and hearing what Dewey's experience was in Croatia, and he was a big deal. We walk around in Zagreb and people know who he is. That's amazing. This is before Michael had won 8 gold medals. So that was he was a rock star. He still is a rock star. And then Gary, getting to know him was awesome. I think he had this larger than life persona, but it sort of kind of came to him because of his circumstances, and he went with it. And I appreciate what he did to basically own it, right? And be this larger than life character and bring what he brought to swimming. I even then I knew that wasn't me. That I don't think I could, but I appreciate it. And I'm looking forward to the next person who does.
I want to see you in some USA Everlast boxing gear behind the blocks and everything.
That's what I'm saying. I mean, and that was just amazing. And being able to, he kind of took on the USOC at the time, and he was just like, I'm gonna do this. This is what's right. This is a professional sports. And I think that he was a visionary back then. And I think his knowledge is still valuable to this day.
He's up next on the next podcast, so looking forward.
I'll be tuning in. And I don't think he recognizes it or is boastful about it, but dig into that. I mean, I think that's really awesome. What he was, it's like to be that I don't know. Some people would villainize him and why he did it, and then he started the race club and saw that as an opportunity. And right now, even I think he's starting his own swim school. It's just it's been cool. He has followed his own path, and it's just so awesome to watch.
He was my generation. I mean, 96. I idolized that 100 free and 50 free in my generation, and then your generation. And Brian, you talked about the 08 53 final and that passing of the Godfather Cape. Talk about that. That's Nathan. You're in that final too.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. So Nathan, you had already made the team in the 100 free in 2008, and let's see, you and I were both in the final of the 50 free. Gary, that was his last race, and I was telling Milo the other day, I accidentally stepped on his cape like we were leaving the ready room. And he gets a little I can't wait to ask him this because I just saw him go.
That's amazing.
He was wearing this cape that said the Godfather of swimming, and I stepped on it and I went, oh my God. Unfortunately, I still went out and went my best time in the 50 free, but
he stole his mojo, man. He had a great time too, though. I think it was 21.7.
Yeah, he got 4th. I mean, he had a great swim. It was but that was ultimately the passing of the torch. And honestly, I think that you had established yourself at Short Course Worlds that year. I think I would definitely not coming out of nowhere, but winning the 100 free. Like we set a world record on the 400 free relay. Duya won the 50, broke the world record. You won the 100 free. I think probably in the same time that you swam, from a from a swing start on the relay, and it was just like getting better throughout the meet, but like swimming through it, and suddenly show up and it's like, okay, the Olympics, and boom, you're off. And I think but then what, a storied career, and I kind of want to breeze through that because I want to know what your thoughts are on the influence of somebody like Gary and some of those other guys, imagining yourself in those days, soaking it in, benefiting from it for, quite a while, and the teachings and learnings and perspective. How do you think about that going forward as now you're team captain, leader on the team, the elder statesman, and educating all of these guys with like a great crop of U.S. sprinters now?
Yeah. So that's a great thought-provoking question for me, and I appreciate that you bring it up with them specifically, because I think most of the time I get asked actually about American, Team USA specifically. But I think that it's important to recognize that it wasn't just Team USA athletes; it was all these other athletes as well. And one of the things I think was pretty awesome was we were willing to share ideas, right? It was like we would bring in, I don't remember who catered it in or whatever, but we would bring in food for after practice, and we just sit there and like George would have, his thoughts on what practice was, and Henrique Barbosa, I think he had won the 100, 200 breasted NCs in 2005, 2006 maybe. Great breaststroke, he's Brazilian. He'd have his thoughts, and he was a total troll before people knew what a troll was. So he could get George going on these random subjects, which was awesome. And then Milo, he also, I think it was really, watching him was something special that year. And this is my perspective, of course, so don't just take it for what it is. I think that he really stepped up his training that year. I had, Mike was new school, but we still did plenty of 10 300s, 3 of them with green paddles, 3 of them with yellow paddles, 3 of them with white paddles, 1 of them without. It was just like, oh gosh, just like all over again. And Milo would be nowhere to be found my freshman year when we were still at Cal, and then when we were down in Florida in Islamorada, he was right there training his butt off every day. And whether it was something going fast, whether it was, some of the more aerobic stuff. And I really believe that it paid off big time for him come the Olympics. As obviously we all saw, he was challenging for a gold medal. So I actually saw that, and that sticks with me a lot. Also, it was just nice. You could talk technique with these guys, and all of them had done something special themselves. And a lot of people had their own perspectives. And sometimes they weren't as open as others, but they would give you little tidbits here, there, and then you could kind of watch them, and you're like, oh, okay. Like, it was never an adversarial conversation. No one was ever giving you bad advice, but there was maybe some secrets here or there.
You had other people who were like Olympic semifinalists and finalists. Salim was there, Yerne was there, right? And all these lots.
Yeah, so that was for the summer leading into it. Yerne was there. Yerne came back to Cal immediately, and he is a Harvard PhD working at like a venture capitalist.
Yeah, we all want to know what you know.
He's doing really big things.
To know.
And we're talking about swimming right now, which is great. I love it. But yeah, so Salim was a great example too. I mean, he was he is the fastest 50 and 100 swimmer to ever not swim with a 6-beat kick. He swam with like this weird like crossover 2-beat thing, kind of similar to what David Plummer did in the 100 bad, which is cool. That's great. That's awesome. I mean, he is a 49-1 guy. When that was challenging for medals at major international competitions. So that, there's something we learned about there. He tried to change it, and it, honestly didn't work out all that well for him. So maybe he should have stuck with, what had made him successful. But who knows? I'm just speculating.
You know what all these guys had in common? You know what John has in common with them? Brian has in common with them? And you don't have in common with them? Roland, Dewey, Kavik, Salim, Brian, Yerne, John all went to Trinidad. Nathan, what happened?
That's right.
You never got invited. Your roommate didn't invite you to Trinidad? I'm inviting you. What happened?
Man, I need to make
The
sometime.
U.S. Olympic team came to Trinidad. Frank Bush came down and did a tour of the new facility that we had. And they went to check it out at the pre-race camp for Rio. Where did you guys do a pre-race camp in Rio? Was it Trinidad? No. Were you the team captain?
We should have.
Gotta get you down there with George with a 50-foot snake. I'd love to see some of those Instagram pictures.
Yeah.
Down in Florida, he petted an alligator in the water. There's a picture of him petting an alligator. And I knew you guys went fishing all the time, right? Spearfishing.
So he petted an alligator, and I think since I don't remember what year it was, but he saved a baby deer that was stuck in a stream.
I've heard that story.
And he also at one point he was just oh yeah, and then when we were at this place, this boat was stuck, so I dove the anchor, and it was 110 feet, and I'm like, are you kidding me? You dove an anchor.
That was our boat. That was our boat.
Really?
Yeah. We're like, where's he going?
Crazy. Man.
But so what happened the next year? Because the next year you went 46.6 in a relay. Your best time before was, according to the stats I have here, so forgive me if I'm wrong. You went 48.7 in lead off of in 08 Olympics. But then you went in Worlds, you went 46.6 in the anchor. That's not a relay start. What happened in that year? You went back to Cal.
Well, I mean, there was a little bit of Stutes involved in that.
Yeah, of course.
Where credit is due there for sure.
Yeah, for sure. But you announced yourself even more then. I was like, dude, and from then on, you kept going 46s in relays at least.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of what I had a taste of it at the Olympics, man. I mean, I was watching from the stands with Ben Wildman Toberner, and Ben had his life ready to go. He could have definitely continued a couple more years and gone super fast, I'm sure. But he was going to UCSF med school. It's a top 3 med school.
Yeah.
I think he's actually a professor at UNC or something now. So yeah, he had other priorities as well. So yeah, I wanted to be on the relay. I wanted to be on the finals. It is really cool to get a gold medal. But I received mine in a little vacuum sealed bag at a team meeting that no one wanted to be at in the Olympic Village, and everyone else that was on the relay, rightfully so, got theirs, in front of the world, and got to listen to the national anthem that they had earned, and that's something that I wanted to do. So that's what I was working towards when I got back to Cal that fall.
And you jumped into Dave, yeah? I mean, you and Brian both got a coach. Well, we're coached by Dave for Brian. Talk about that, yeah? I mean, just legend, man.
Total legend. I would actually love to. I have experienced this massive transition with Dave myself, actually, in really cool ways, just because of how adaptive he is to the given situation at Cal, and what athletes he has, and what he needed to do to take Cal from a top 5 team to a first and second every year team.
But I know Dave won't take all the credit at all. It's your whole staff. It's the AD. It's the facilities. It's everything around there. Talk about that. Talk about what Cal is doing right to be the powerhouse you continue to be. It's definitely Dave driving it, but he has his whole organization, right?
Well, Dave created the organization.
Right. Yes.
I think that's one of the most powerful things about, having him. As if I was an athletic director, you want that guy. You have to understand that a college coach is much more of a CEO role than it is a, PhD in physiology. I'm just going to coach. That's the fun stuff. The not so fun stuff is, like you said, making sure that we have absolutely everything that we need in order to swim fast. And Cal has been incredibly supportive, but it's also presented its challenges. Of course, any college coaching job does. And then he also did a great job of recruiting, especially as those first couple of years. Again, we were a top 5 team. There's a lot of top 5 teams that want to be number 1 or number 2, but he did it. And that's so awesome. He worked for it, man. He absolutely worked for it. His first year, he didn't have an assistant. So on top of recruiting all of those athletes, And I think he got an all California class of like 12 or 13, something crazy, and they all did extraordinary. He was writing workouts to like 3 different groups. He had one like a 5th year coming in and helping out when he could, but he was also administering all this stuff. It was absolutely nuts.
How do you deal with the pressure? Because I remember when like who's going to be Mike's replacement? Mike got off to Michigan. There was a lot of like news, and then we hired Dave Durden, Auburn coach. How did he deal with that pressure of that legacy of Noah to Mike to him? And he just worked his ass off, right? He put everything, and his God-given talent came out, I guess, as a brilliant coach. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that he had a plan. When we talk about
as usual,
he had a plan. So he knew what he needed to do, and I would be remiss not to mention that Dave has a knack for identifying talent in assistant coaches. So Greg, obviously amazing. What did Greg do his first year? He literally commuted from Stockton, California to Berkeley to be there for 6 a.m. practice. Not only that, but if you work for Dave Durden, and all of Dave's assistants will know this, you have to be at practice really friggin' early.
Wow.
So he was probably waking up before 4 o'clock to get to practice, and then he was leaving, around 4 o'clock after the second practice was done, and Greg was going home and being a great dad. That he and Dave identified that and was like, "You're my guy." That takes a level of talent as well. And obviously Yuri was a great coach. Yuri is a great coach, and now with Chase, same kind of thing. So. There's a lot of different things that go into, making a really great head coach, and he's got a lot of those.
Now we talk about that level of time commitment that a coach needs in NCAA Swimming Division I for sure, and maybe one of the reasons for inequality in women head coaches is just so much time and effort in there. I mean, you're involved heavily in USA Swimming or overall? I mean, what's your thoughts on the inequality in head coaching? I mean, yeah.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you bringing that up, and I don't have an answer at this time. What I do really stress and find that is important is that it has to be just like any good public health intervention. I was a public health major in school. It has to be a multi-level approach, right? You can't just say, "Hey, NCAA, we need to have X% of female head coaches."
No.
To be honest, I think that could work, but it also could set up for a not successful intervention. You need to have these interventions to initiate female empowerment and female leadership from a young age, right? And that is the solution, in my opinion. And I actually think that what Kara has done with her, with her business that she's doing and empowering those girls, getting those beautiful, like wonderful, like female strong leaders to come in and talk to them about what it's like and what they need to do is really important.
Yeah, we were lucky to have Kara on and talking about Elite Sports Academy, and then Coach Kirsten came on just afterwards as well, and that's really, really uber important. And it's interesting you mentioned.
I want to hit this real quick because you hit on it a little bit, Nathan. And I think it's something we talked to Maya Dorado about, which was, I asked her the question, "Hey, did anybody on your team ever see themselves coaching?" Right, like you had Tracy on staff at Stanford. The Lee Maurer on the early days before Greg got there, there were reasons, why you would think that there were influences in those ladies' lives. There were always guys that I swam with who saw themselves being a coach, like always one or two. And she said, and I asked her, "Well, were any of the women on the Stanford team interested in coaching? Are they coaching now?" And she said, nobody even thought about it. It wasn't even like an idea that was the next career path. And that's just so different than it is for men's swimming. You always have a few. So I just want to say, like, I totally agree with your point that it's like, there might be a couple steps back so that there is the foresight of this is a career path that's worth pursuing because there are opportunities out there. And, if you don't plant that seed early, then they just don't see that as a path and start to write it off and go a different direction.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, and leave it to Maya to come up with something like. I mean, she's brilliant.
Yeah. Sorry, Luke, finish your point.
No, I was going into the. It's interesting you mentioned your public health degree, and I talked about the Black Lives Matter almost being like our COVID moment to help with equality in our sport as well and access to swimming communities. And what can we do as leaders of the sport? I mean, I'm not an elite athlete in the swimming, but I am a leader because I have a voice, and we all have voices, and we can do something. And what can we do to help that imbalance? And what do you think? And you are definitely a leader in our sport globally. And I'm always, my job here is to keep this. It's swimming. It's not USA swimming. It's not Trinidad swimming. It's swimming. What do we do to help the other countries, the other communities, the other cities, the other kids? You know what I mean?
That's a great question. I wish I did have the answers. I work closely with the USA Swimming Foundation, and I do think that they're doing some pretty good work. They are helping to provide free and reduced swim lessons to those who can't afford it. It's not specifically a race thing, but as you look at the demographics, African American and Hispanic Latino children have less swimming ability overall in the United States, so they are those in need. So a lot of those funds end up going that way. And I think actually some of the most beautiful stories are those like a Trevor Freeland who swam in Philadelphia, and listening to him and what he has to say, and listening to others that swam on historically Black clubs. I think that's a really powerful thing to hear about, not only for me but for others, so they can say, hey, this is a thing. Maybe I can go, start again, like you had mentioned, start my own club. Let's get something going, wherever it may be that you live.
Reflecting back as you got older, did you experience bias in the sport? Because being an Asian American, you're Native American as well, right? You have roots.
No,
My fault.
I'm half Asian, and then German Irish on the other side.
But did you experience any biasness? Do you reflect on that comment? You're right. That was a bit.
Looking back, yeah. At the time, I didn't recognize it, but a little bit. You can't be good at sports, you're Asian kind of thing. You're supposed to be good at math. That's why you're in chemistry and whatever grade it is, that kind of thing. It did make its way in there. I don't fault any individuals for anything that they said. It was a culture thing, and I appreciate the fact that that is starting to make its way out of our culture, or be recognized as something that we probably shouldn't do. And I never, I don't know, for better or for worse, my parents really never brought that up with me, and I think I say for better or for worse because I think that's a double-edged sword. I didn't quite understand or take the time to examine my identity as a half Asian, American, and understand that as a kid. But also, I didn't let that identity define what I could do in the sport because I hadn't seen it before. But also, to your point too, we were talking about Dana Kirk. I had a great person to look to, and Tara Kirk, who lived 10 minutes away from me, 15 minutes away from my house, that were doing amazing things in swimming. From when I was a really young age. So maybe that empowered me in ways that I didn't quite recognize at the time. But looking back on it now, certainly I just didn't really see it. We had 3 half Asian Olympians from a town of 30,000 people in Washington State. Let's go, man.
Hey,
my wife is she has a company that, well, first of all, she's Asian, and she's Asian descent, and she's a swim coach up in Palo Alto in the Bay Area, and she has this online swim meet company, and they're starting to do some virtual swim meets, and part of the money they are doing is giving to the diversity, I think, department or diversity fund for Pacific Swimming. Do you know much about how different LSCs or how USA Swimming works with the diversity funds and things like that?
I don't. I am only getting familiarized with the governance of USA Swimming now, and I actually credit Tim Hinchy with inviting national team athletes to get involved with that. So I really appreciate having him as a leader to do so.
All right, we're gonna change gears and ask you a couple rapid fire questions, Nathan.
Let's go.
All right, what's the hardest race in swimming?
You know, I
When you pause, it's a lie. Tell
No.
us.
Say it.
So trying to be objective here. From what I hear, it's the 200 backstroke.
The 200 backstroke.
Have
Come
you
on,
ever swum a
you can't get a
200
sprinter
backstroke
to
in your
say
life?
53.
No, honestly, the last time I swam the 200 backstroke was like probably when I was like 11 years old or something. But from what I hear, your legs are totally, I mean, it's crazy. You don't have like as much of an oxygen debt, so you can push yourself like pretty hard.
Nathan, the third 50 of your skins at ISL. That must be the same thing in the world. I saw you.
That could be it, actually. When my vertical leap was all of about 12 inches off the block there, yeah. That hurts.
How did you go?
Oh man,
No.
our sprinters tougher than distance swimmers.
Yeah, I don't know.
Leverage your last thought.
I wouldn't be a 31-year-old distance swimmer if I was a distance swimmer.
Yeah, we talk often about how in track you go up in distance, in triathlon you go up in distance as you age, and swimming you don't. You go the other way.
You definitely go the other way.
That's so weird. How high did your lactate spike during those ISL skins?
It was above 20 on Matt's little lactate meter.
Good Lord. Why hasn't air stacking caught on anywhere except for Cal?
Air stacking? What's that?
You know what I'm talking about? Like, open air.
George was the one who sort of told me about that the first time. So,
He's the one who introduced it to me, but I only see Cal guys doing it.
yeah, no, I mean, are you kidding? Yeah, I don't know.
Keep it quiet, Brian. Don't let it get out.
I don't know. I'm not an expert.
A little bit. Yeah, that's great.
So you I think are kind of the modern pioneer of going straight arm free for the last 10 meters of 100 free. But who do you think was like actually the pioneer?
Oh, it was Michael Klim. He did it with dolphin kick though.
Yep. All right. Agreed. That's what we used to emulate too, but with dolphin kick. If you could start an ISL franchise, what would you call it?
Oh man, I have a hard time. I mean, if you look at like our AC Swim Club logo and our colors and stuff, obviously like we're gonna be blue and gold, and then I don't know. I'll just go with the Bears, man. It was practically LA Current anyway.
Yeah. A lot of people say men with cats are weak. Your response?
I can bicep curl my cat literally indefinitely.
If you could go head to head with any sprinter from any era, who would you choose?
Johnny Weissmuller.
That's cool. Tarzan himself. Who's the best American sprinter of all time?
Of all time? Gary is currently. People forget. I think because Gary kind of skipped out on the World Championship circuit because he's that cool.
Yeah.
I mean, give me a break, man. I think he medaled in the 50 and 100 in 96. He won 2000 with Tony, and he won 2004. He's a man. I mean, still looking at this, he's still top in the record, in the medal, like men's side of like Olympic medalists. Yeah, people just have they have like a recency bias. It's very real.
Yeah, I can't wait to ask him what he was doing in between the Olympics.
Yes, I will be tuning in for this.
All right, last one. Time projections. What's it going to take to get an individual swim in the 50 and 100 for Tokyo?
47.5, I think, and then 21, 2 or 3. That'd be a guess. That's a guess. That's a conserve. That's my like over under for it. You know, it can go either way, but it's tough to go really fast, man.
Nathan, when's the last time you wrote?
I said last one, but I got to hit you with another bonus one. Because my college teammate was Cesar Fiello, and he still has those world records in the 50 and 100. Are they going down this year?
They're going down in the next 2 years. They're going down soon. Yeah. I think so.
Nathan, you answered a lot of those questions.
I was convinced they were going down last year. I was convinced the 50 was going down. I think that Caleb just maybe didn't really want to yet.
Yeah. It's coming. It's coming for sure. What are you gonna say, Luke?
No, I was just gonna say, Nathan, you answered all those questions with thought, and I can see it was like your responsibility as who you are as Nathan Adrian. To be quite honest, I'm being frank here, and you have a big responsibility for our sports, and you're a huge ambassador for our sports, and a great one. But this, honestly, there's a lot of pressure as well. I mean, you're Mr. Consistency, Mr. Clutch, and you know that. But that must, how do you deal with that stuff, man? How do you deal with getting the blocks and at age 31, 32?
I think to be totally honest, I mean, the cancer thing really helped put a lot of my life into perspective.
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
That's just what it is, there was a point in time where swimming was my life, and I really felt a whole lot of pressure that if I don't do this, like, things are going to go bad. Like, I'm going to lose all my sponsors. I'm going to let Dave down. I'm going to let myself down, let my family down, my friends down. And then, to be totally honest, it actually happened in 2011. And I think the great thing is that when I tell people that, they're like, what happened in 2011? And that's telling in itself, because in 2010, I won everything at PAMPAX. And then 2011 came and I dropped the ball. I mean, I didn't medal in either the 50 or the 100. I don't think we won the 4x100 freestyle relay. I almost got ran down by James, the 4x100 medley relay. And I was devastated. And then the next day, the sun still rose. And then, my family still loved me and my friends were still my friends. And it was fine, and I think that's really an incredible lesson. And I'm very grateful that I learned it very early on in my career. And then again, with the cancer thing, it's like, listen, there's only so much I can do. Like, I can only push myself to the point of, teetering on exhaustion and overtraining. And that's all I can do, Like, I trust Dave with what we're doing in the water. I trust our strength coach with what we're doing in the weight room. And the rest, like, I trust myself to the point where, like, I'm going to focus and I'm going to do everything that I can do in order to swim as fast as I can. But if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. That sounds terrible. I don't know.
No, it's not terrible. It's
it's sort of like life, There's just certain things you really can't control. And believe me, I'm controlling everything that I possibly can control right now.
How did cancer make you feel about that, and how are you doing?
Cancer made me understand and honestly prepared me wonderfully for a global pandemic. Honestly, right? Like, I was healthy, man, and I was getting back to right where I wanted to be in the water, like out of design. And here we go with this diagnosis, and I'm just like, oh, well, this isn't in the plan. But it is something that we have to handle. And then even going through all those steps to handle it, there's so much that you can't control. You're like, why can't I know how far it has spread right now? Why do I have to make a guess about this? It feels like throwing darts and I suck at darts. So I can only make my best assumptions off of our get current info and then go with it. And then you have to let that decision go. Right. So it's kind of like about making, even when it comes to training, it's a lot about making these decisions that you can live with at the end of the day, even if you fail. And it's like, did I go to bed on time? Did I have a good, nutritious dinner? Did I wake up and fuel myself in a way that, I can be successful? And then after, did I try hard enough and practice? These are all these questions that you can ask yourself as you're going through the process and then kind of evaluate at the end of the day. And if you're like, yes, I did a really, really good job, maybe not even perfect, but I did a really dang good job.
Yeah.
Be able to live with the results that happen at the end of the day.
What if you got it when you're 21? Before we go there, Justin's got some questions, right? Do you remember Justin has some questions to the audience? Let's see if Nathan, John and I tried to do a little Ask Kids questions, what they know about Nathan Adrian. And it was funny. They knew your name. I mean, my son knew your name, but yeah, they didn't really. It was hilarious. Like, so, yeah. By the way, what event did he swim? It was hilarious.
And I think the question I got from my kid was, if you could ask Nathan Adrian something, what would it be? How can I get taller? So we're waiting on that answer from you, Nathan.
Eat your veggies, man. My mom will tell you.
Justin,
I had an 11-year-old kid too, and I asked, "Do you know who Nathan Adrian is?" And he was like, "Yeah." And he asked, "What does he like to do on his spare time?" But we'll get that to another time. Nathan, here's a good fan question. What do you think, excluding yourself, who will be the top 4 100 freestylers of the U.S. relay next year?
Don't make me answer that.
Make
me answer that. What I will say is that they're going to be, just as with every other Team USA relay, you walk out there with some serious pride and with your chest out, because you know you had to fight to get on that relay, and those guys next to you had to do the same thing. So we, as a group, are going to fight for this relay to win a gold medal. It's really awesome feeling.
And then we have another question from a mother. She's asking, what do you suggest is the best dryland option for her 16-year-old backstroker? I believe she's claiming he's 6'9".
Oh, whoa! All right, so
I think this is what it says here.
Probably grew really quick. And honestly, anything that is going to like encourage like cross-body stabilization and or coordination is going to be way more important than cranking out deadlifts, Olympic lifts, anything like that. If you want to do like maybe a dumbbell, like a single leg RDL to something, overhead super light, again, cross-body stabilization and working on coordination, that's going to do way more for you than what you're seeing on Instagram these days.
Nathan, I got one from a swimmer that we work with from Trinidad. So she's a 50 freestyler, went to Tennessee. She made Tokyo cut for Olympics. We've worked with her a bit. So she said that I admired Nathan's freestyle technique and hold on the water for a long time. I'd ask, what mental image does he have of himself when he's sprinting? Or how would he describe the way he moves through the water at top speeds? That's it. I thought that was an interesting question.
This is what I love. I don't think a lot of Americans probably think about their swimming like this. And this is the kind of questions or the kind of conversations that I would have with George. And actually, like I swam with a South African, and our strength coach was South African. And recently I was watching some John Skinner videos. He blows my mind. Like the way he thinks about swimming is totally different than me, but it's very similar. Like, I don't think about myself as a hydrofoil. I don't think of, like whatever, but I'm like, it makes sense. Like I can, like, that's kind of like, I don't know if I do it, but I think I do it. So basically what I think of is like when things are flowing for me, everything is coming from my core. Right. It's literally everything. It's crazy. I really focus on trying to have my hips as flat as possible, which I know is like, but I do. And everything, like thinking about that. And then the boxing stuff that we did with the race club, like we weren't doing real boxing, right? Like we weren't actually doing this stuff, but we were like kind of locking our shoulders in and just getting that movement in. And that's kind of what I focus on and how I feel with that rotation component of my swimming. So it's basically just kind of like an inside out thing versus just like hands, hit, grab, pull, I
love it. Nathan, where can people follow you and keep up with you for the next year as you head into Tokyo?
So my social media handle I actually use is Nathan G. Adrian on Instagram. That is close, but it's nathanadrian.com. If you have a moment though, don't hate getting likes and or followers on @AC Swim Club, either Facebook or Instagram. And that's it.
Well, congrats on the business. Looking forward to seeing that grow. And of course, we'll be keeping track of you over the next few. It's awesome to get to catch up. Thanks a lot for hanging out with us, man. Cool. That's it for this episode of Social Kick Podcast. We'll see you next week with Gary Hall Jr.
Sweet.
See ya.